Welcome to Desert Island Tim's. My guest today is Celtic Quick News' very own Paul Brennan. Paul, it's good to have you here. How are you?
I'm great, delighted to be here.
I'll start as I normally do, and that's just asking you, what was life like growing up for a young Paul Brennan?
Life was pretty decent growing up as a young Paul Brennan. I grew up in Hollytown, which is just a couple of miles outside Motherwell, between Motherwell and Bellshill. For those that don't know their Lanarkshire geography very well, and I loved it. Loved the village. It was a village of 5,000 or 6,000 people. It was a good football village. It's a fair collection of Celtic fans and Rangers fans and the odd Motherwell fan. It was a great place to grow up. We went to primary school in Hollytown, went to high school in Cardinal Newman in Bellshill. Hadn't known beyond Hollytown, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was the greatest place on earth.
Was there lots to go up to?
There was nothing to go up to that you couldn't do yourself on your own. You know, Hollytown had basically a few big housing schemes and a main street with the kind of shops that villages have, and that's about the stretch off it. Yeah, as a boy you had a football and you had pals and a bike, and really that's really as much as you needed. It was a safe wee village. There wasn't a lot of problems in it. You walked up and down to school. We got the bus into Bellshill once the high school came along. Hollytown's got 5,000 or 6,000 people. Bellshill's got 30,000 people, I think. So it's a considerably bigger town. Again, it didn't have anything going for it. Yeah. I spoke to Billy McNeil about Bellshill, and he's one of the most famous Bellshill men. He spoke warmly about his time growing up in the town, but then he was very saddened by going back to the town and seeing how it just disintegrated in the industrial era when it lost a whole lot of its spirit. And I was going to school in Bellshill in 1979 to 1984, really when Margaret Thatcher came in and decided that industrial policy was going to take a turn to the right, and towns like that really decimated. Motherwell gets the name as the big Lanarkshire town, which epitomises industrial decline, but it actually clung on a bit longer than Bellshill did. It had at that stage Ravenscraig still open and a couple other steelworks still open. It had a more vibrant town centre. So for me it was the metropolis. You know, it was a place that we would go to as boys. You could walk to Motherwell, you could take a bus into Motherwell, and that was the town I was allowed to go on my own as a young kid. So it was a town of big excitement, and it was quite a decent wee town at that stage. It had all the shops you could want for. Didn't quite have the amenities like a cinema, but you know, you got that in the really big town like Hamilton, if you really wanted it. So that was it, and that was childhood. I remember thinking when I left Hollytown at 17 that I couldn't think of a better place to live. I believed that in all sincerity. Knew Glasgow quite well, knew the Lanarkshire towns, Hamilton, East Kilbride, Motherwell and Bellshill. Curiously didn't really know Monklands that well, but out of my experience, Hollytown was perfect for me. It set me up really, really well.
So that takes us to your first song. How did you come about this?
You've kind of got to cover a lot of decades when you choose this list. I'm a Johnny Cash fan. I think, you know, he's fantastic. He covered a lot of material that I'm not up for, frankly, but some of his stuff is first class. By the same token, as a child, you've got to, whether you're influenced by it or not, you've got to put up with a lot of your dad's music. So my dad was a Johnny Cash fan, and there's very little crossover between my music and my dad's music, but Johnny Cash is where it starts. So I thought, well, to give that era and my musical education its place, and my dad and the home its place, we'll kick off with Johnny Cash. Wanted Man is just a fantastic bit of music, so that's what we start off with.
That was Wanted Man by Johnny Cash. Who were your influences and your heroes?
Unpopular though it often is to say it these days, Kenny Dalglish was the big hero when I was a boy. I was 10 when he left, and he could do no wrong. He was a fantastic player. He was one of the very few in 125 years of history that you could make a case for as being the very best of them, and there's maybe at most 4 players that fall into that category. And I saw him as a boy at his best, and he was fabulous. And that was a Celtic team with people like Johnson, McNeil and Lennox and the likes of that, and not to say others like Dixie and players like the rest of that team. It was a hell of a Celtic team, and that guy was just utterly fabulous and a great player. And I remember the day he left, I was out the back, my mum shouted out the news, and of course, what do you mean, how do you know, who told you? And you know, my dad had phoned the house to let her know. The man across the road, who was also a Celtic fan, sitting reading the newspaper on his front step, and she shouts across to him, "Have you heard?" And he held up the newspaper with the story on it, and that was it. There was no more King Kenny. And a chapter had ended. And let me tell you a great wee story. At Celtic Quick News did Willie Wallace autobiography in just the last month, and we've had a lot of fun with it. Fantastic book, fantastic guy. We went to Waterson's in Stirling to do a signing session, and a guy came and bought a book and got it signed by him, and he spoke to me and says, "Look, I was brought up a Hearts fan, and my father was a Hearts fan, my grandfather was a Hearts fan. Went to Kilmarnock in 1965, the day we lost the league on goal average." He says, "But really I was a Willie Wallace fan." And when Willie Wallace signed for Celtic, he says, "I switched allegiances." He says, "My father wasn't as big a football fan as my grandfather was." He says, "But I know it must have hurt my grandfather."
Yeah.
He says, "But that was it. I was a Willie Wallace fan more than anything else." And so he went to Celtic. We won the European Cup, and there's been no going back. I said, "I'm a big Celtic fan." He's wearing a Celtic t-shirt. He's a man maybe in his mid-50s, but yeah, he's as much a Celtic fan as you could ever see. But this guy started off a Hearts fan, only became a Celtic fan because of Willie Wallace. I didn't switch allegiance obviously from Celtic, but I never really lost it for Kenny Dalglish, although Celtic fans did en masse then, and at various stages for various reasons since then. I always thought I just couldn't go over what he did for us, what a good player he was, that so much of the Celtic that I saw in my early days was down to him. And certainly a lot of the things we won in those early days, the latter part of 9 in a row, was significantly down to King Kenny. In 1978, when Jock had his testimonial, Liverpool came up for it, and Kenny came back to Celtic Park and was booed. I just couldn't understand what the hell was going on here. Why were Celtic fans booing Kenny Dalglish? He was still the guy that had done it for us, and he'd left and he'd gone on, and we'd seen it. I remember the goal against Bruges at Wembley, and it kind of made sense. I understood he left for that, and he got that, and he was good enough to go and do it, and I didn't grudge him it, and I was happy that one of our heroes had actually proven that he was worthy of that title. And all I wanted to do was come back and give the guy a cheer, and of course he was booed by people a lot older than I was, at 11 years old, who felt differently about the whole thing, but he was my big hero. And in football terms, another hero didn't emerge until Charlie Nicholas. Now, I'm not going to tell you any of the things I've just said about Kenny Dalglish about Charlie Nicholas. Right. For me, it ended with Charlie Nicholas the day and hour he left to go to Arsenal. He was a fantastic footballer. He scored a whole lot of goals. He had touch and vision and skill and all of these things. He didn't have a lot of the drive and athleticism that players in Scottish football and in English football had at that time, and everybody in the game has now. He was more a player who was very dated looking back on it now, but he was the next big hero, and it was simply fantastic for 3 or 4 seasons. It was at Celtic.
Your second song? My
second song's Up the Junction by Squeeze. I think it came from 1979. It was certainly off that era, maybe slightly later than that, but I was right into Squeeze at that stage, and they were one of the first bands that I actually got into when you kind of leave your early childhood and you're making your own decisions. Yes, fantastic lyricists, fantastic musically, and absolutely loved it. And my boys are into Squeeze now. I still, they're not of high prominence in my music collection. They only really hear it when they're in the car, but it's good enough to reach all the way into kids that are born in this century now. And so it's got to be there. If the last one, the Johnny Cash one, harked back to the previous generation, Squeeze touches me and touches the next generation too.
That was Up the Junction by Squeeze. How did CQN come about?
It was July 2004. I'd never taken part in any Celtic social media or anything. I was completely zero on anybody's radar, but I was furious at the media. Like 17,000 as it was at the time, other Celtic fans had bought shares in Celtic, either when Fergus put them up or shortly thereafter, as they did. And I was getting an issue of the accounts posted out to me once a year. Tells me what's going on, where the money's coming from, where the money's going to. I'm driving to work one morning and listening to the news, and in a sports broadcast that comes on after it, the journal says what the Celtic fans want to know is, where is all the Seville money? And I was just ballistic at this stupid question. And it wasn't just a stupid question, it was a toxic question, because we all saw everybody that we knew wearing a new Celtic top and games packed out. and all these games and all this revenue coming into the club that wouldn't have otherwise come into the club. So there was tangible evidence of spend going on at Celtic, and many instances would have been the recipient of, and in some instances, like a lot of the shirts, for reasons that I'll not go into, weren't necessarily the recipient of. To the uninitiated, there was this notion that there was money come in from Seville and it was unallocated, that Henrik Larsson had left, there was a huge hole in our team, and that the Celtic fans needed to know where all this money went. There was an implication behind that, that there was something untowards about it, inserting a wee bit of poison into Celtic support. And the media, ridiculously good at this, and still very effective about this. You take tens of thousands of people who've got more to do with their time, study accounts, or it's of no interest to them, or all they really want to do is go along and support the football team because why shouldn't they? It's their prerogative. You take them and you seed a wee bit of poison into their minds and let it run and broadcast it. I knew where all the Seville money went because I'd read the accounts. It'd gone in the pocket of Henrik Larsson, John Hartson and Chris Sutton and Martin O'Neill and everybody else who were very well paid football players and managers, and performed like very well paid football players and managers. We lost £7 million the Seville season. That's it. You pay your rates, you pay your police, you pay your electricity, you pay £30 odd million in wages. You pull the whole thing together, from the top of my head I think turnover was in the region of 60 something million pound, and we lose money. Not a case of where all the Seville money went, it's you did Seville, you did this, what are you going to do about it next year? Because at current infrastructure setup you're losing money. You need to get into Champions League next season to break even at current expenditure and to fill some of the hole from that. So this is where the finances are. The story was there in black and white, and it wasn't being told. And not only was it not being told, but it was being perverted. There was a different version of reality being seeded into people's minds. So I get in and I work beside a Rangers fan, and I'm ranting along the ways. You can see it's still a raw topic. And he says, look, why don't you start a blog? And what's a blog, was what I said. And he says, this is it. And he sits me down, and we got on to Blogger, which is then at that stage what I used and was owned by Google. And he sets me up with a Google account, and he gets me going. He says, right, just going, right. So I sat down, and the first thing I wrote was a wee bit about the media. I didn't get right into accounts right away, just to have something up. And then a couple of days later, Barry Peacock died, and I wrote just a wee bit about Barry Peacock, and my pals kind of read what I did, because at this stage this is as far as it goes really. And then it was the third post that we get into the subject. This is the money coming into Celtic, this is the money going out of Celtic, this is what we spend on, this is what debt is, this is how our debt is arranged. And it took me weeks, because these are big topics, and I started off doing huge big articles, too much in them, difficult to follow, and then I cut it down a wee bit, told a lot of the same story again several days later. And of course it was an unpopular message. Celtic support were saying, well, look, just sign a player, just do what the Rangers are doing, they can afford it, why can't we afford it? And I got dogs abuse. Shocked at it. Didn't expect this. I thought people would say, oh right, okay, I can go and check that, there you go. I didn't. I got dogs abuse with people that says, look, you're here to mislead Celtic fans. Bizarrely, shut up, sign a footballer. One of the things that dogs abuse did was popularise that debate. People came to Celtic Quick News to give me dogs abuse and then leave again. People told their friends, go to Celtic Quick News and give this guy dogs abuse. At least it felt that way. If it hadn't have been controversial, if it hadn't have been seen as subversive, and people did view what I was trying to say as subversive, then it wouldn't have spread, wouldn't have gone as many places, and it might have died quite quickly. But controversy is popular, and that message was controversial. It wasn't being told anywhere else, and it felt like me, people were just pitching up and getting all their pals in to pitch up and say, don't be a dick, and so over the course of a few weeks, thousands of people came on basically to say, don't be a dick. Some of them said it quite effectively, some of them listened to the debate, and there was by no means everybody along those lines. Other people went away, read the accounts, came back, debated the merits of ever-increasing debt, debated the merits of stability in terms of finances. Think back 9 years, where we are now, the space where we are now in terms of understanding the limitations of what you get away with when you're running football finances. It absolutely didn't happen. The spectre of Leeds United was mocked whenever anyone raised it. Me or anyone else on Celtic Quick News, football clubs couldn't crash, couldn't burn, couldn't go out of business, and that was where we were. And I was taking the look, you've got to pay your way over any business period. Income's got to equal expenditure. If not, you're storing up big problems and big trouble. Nobody'd seen big trouble. The bubble was still inflating. It went along those lines for several weeks, and then I got to a stage that we were looping in the debate. What was happening was new people were coming in, and I was explaining amortisation all over again. They would come in, they would go away and read the accounts. We're spending £15 million on amortisation. We don't need any amortisation. Let's just buy footballers with that. For the uninitiated, amortisation is how you account for spend on footballers and accounts. And so we were explaining exactly the same thing over and over again to new people that come in. So I thought, right, you've kind of done your bit. You've got everybody away reading accounts. One Saturday morning I sat and I wrote a, look, thanks very much, I think this is the end of the project article. There was no football on Celtic Quick News at all at this stage, but it was a Saturday. I think we were playing Falkirk, and I was bored with the accounts debate, and I'd written this article ready just to press the button. I'd read the blog just before I did, and I thought, look, why don't you just talk about the game? So I gave a wee preview of the Falkirk game and stuck it up, and then other people started talking about the Falkirk game, and we got talking about football instead. And I didn't think that I could talk about football. Not that I couldn't talk about football, but having built this kind of brand up to talk about accounts, I didn't think I had permission to talk about football from the audience that were there to talk about accounts, basically. But we did, and I didn't close it on that day. I let the thing run. The entire project was done without any planning, without any long-term objective. I simply wanted to get in there and say, see this guy that says, what happened to the Seville money? Here's the answer to it. It was set up to answer a simple question. This is what happened to your Seville money. And then we just stumbled into talking football, and it literally came from there. And of course, you then start to enjoy it, and you start to get things back out of it. And it's been giving me a lot of pleasure ever since, basically.
Fantastic. Thank goodness your Rangers supporting friend put you onto this.
He was the first commenter on Celtic Quick News as well. The very first comment was him. We got quite into redesigning Scottish football, and I came out with a plan for a European league. It was either late 2004, early 2005, and he wrote the thing up. He published an article on it with a big pyramid system for European leagues, and so he only contributed that one article, but Celtic Quick News was his idea, basically.
Fantastic. Right, your third song.
My third song is Mother Glasgow by Hue and Cry. As I explained, I'm a Lanarkshire man, but Glasgow is still the town. And it was the town you went to go your proper shopping in. If you ever had an occasion to do your proper shopping, it was the town that you went to do any socialising, and it was obviously the town that gave us all our big interest in Celtic. I went to uni, I left Hollytown at 17 and went to uni at Stirling, and the Hue and Cry came and played this pokey wee room at Stirling, and I'd heard of them. I didn't know them, and I wasn't that big into music, but the people who were big into music knew all about these guys and talked about them, so I'd heard of them. So I went along, and there couldn't have been 70 people in this room, and it was packed at that stage, but they were there, and they were good. They were talented musicians, obviously, and talented guys, and Mother Glasgow is a completely different song for them, but it gives Glasgow its place. It gives in the life of our football team, of my life. It talks about a Billy or a Dan, and I don't think that anybody in the Celtic support ever want to dominate Glasgow. We've got to give all sides of the city its place, and I think this song is poetry in that respect.
That was Hue and Cry, Mother Glasgow. What are your earliest memories of going to Celtic Park?
This is one I've been asked a good few times, Billy, but I don't remember not going to Celtic Park, is the truth. My maternal grandfather died when I was 4, and he was the one that started taking me, and I remember going with him. Now, I do remember going in to the games with my granda, but he literally died a few months after I turned 4, So I was maybe 2 and 3 when I started going. So you're embedding memories at the stage that you're really, it's only possible to embed memories. So I don't remember a time I wasn't going to Celtic Park. It's as simple as that. The memories I can think back, I only really remember wee glimpses of things with my granda. He took me along to a Rangers game as well. You know, I went with him. It was we shared pretty much everything for those 4 years. But he died, and then I went along with my dad. Now my dad's a butcher, and still is a butcher, but he worked on a Saturday, so he couldn't get to Saturday games. So from that stage on, it was the Wednesday night games, and significantly it was the European games that you remember best and you remember most. And of course, I missed the best yet. I was born in May 1967, the day we won the league at Ibrox, and Jinky scored twice. And one of my favourite Celtic memories is actually talking to Jinky about that day. I don't have time to even touch on the subject with you, Billy, because I told Jinky the day I was born, shut up, and then the next hour it was all about that day. But you know, so I was 19 days old when we won the European Cup, and my childhood toys had 1967 Celtic written on them, and I had footballs with Lisbon written on it and all these kind of things. So I grew up in that era. I grew up with Billy McNeil as our captain, and then Kenny Dalglish coming to the fore. I remember the Airdrie Cup final in 75 very well. I'd have been 8 at that stage, and I've got really, really good memories of that cup final. Remember wee glimpses of the Dundee United Cup final this season. Prior to that, I could tell you who was at the game with. I could tell you conversations I had at the game. I could tell you Pat McCluskey scoring a penalty and Paul Wilson. We stood outside Hampden at the end to watch the team leave with the cup as well. I took my 8-year-old along to the Scottish Cup final this season, hoping that he's at the age now he picks up all of what I picked up at that stage and can carry that forward with him, and fortunately we won the thing, which makes it better. The last cup final he went to, it was Kilmarnock, and he still talks to me about it no matter what I say, and try and dissuade him from talking to me about it. So those are my early memories. Of course, there were great times, and we talked about that Jockstein game, and I remember the Jinky and Bobby Lennox testimonial game as well. Then getting into my teenage years, when I went to football more than I did at any stage of my life, because I was going home and away every single week, and I was still at school at that stage. I hadn't left and gone to uni, which made it more difficult to go home and away every week. But that was when I went to the majority of games that I did in my life, and got closest to Celtic in many respects. And it was a great era. We all love the new Celtic Park, but frankly it's not the old Celtic Park. You know, it can't be, it wasn't, it doesn't look as good. The atmosphere can't ever be as good as when you have pretty much 60,000 people standing and 7,000 people sitting. It was a great time to be a Celtic supporter. You had fantastic players, you had fantastic teams, you had a fantastic league, and there was, just as there is right now, there was no blue team to get in the way. You know, it was Celtic Aberdeen, Celtic occasionally Aberdeen, and Dundee United. You had Davy Provan, who was a fantastic footballer. You had Nicholas and McGarvey, and George McCluskey, who was on the periphery of that great team but still a fantastic footballer. And Tommy Burns, Bobby Lennox. Bobby Lennox was the only Lisbon Lion that I knew well as a player and understood him. I knew Jinky was a hero because he was skillful, but I knew Jinky just a wee bit too soon, a wee bit too young. Bobby Lennox, I was old enough to appreciate and understand and do that type of thing. Roy Aitken as well in that team. So it was a great era. We won things. We were miles outsmarted when it came to European football. Miles outsmarted when it came to Aberdeen as well. Celtic in that era used to batter Aberdeen and lose 1-0 because Ferguson was a better manager than Billy, and he knew how to do it. He knew how to organise a defence and steal a goal. And I don't know how many Celtic Aberdeen games, how many league titles were decided because of that simple fact. Celtic would bang down a wing, throw a cross in, or get Tommy Burns on the ball and open something up, and we were doing great inventive football, but we were getting robbed at the back, and we get robbed repeatedly in Europe in the early stages of it, and we get robbed against the likes of Aberdeen and to an extent Dundee United as well.
Your next song?
Next song is Texas, I Don't Want a Lover. Again, we're maybe in the late 1980s here, but it's from my student days or the days immediately after that. Like Texas, it's a great poppy song, everybody likes. I Don't Want a Lover, it's set them off, and they're a good Celtic band as well. And just latterly, Ali Mackerley, the guitarist at Texas, donated a framed Celtic top signed by the Seville team, and we auctioned it off, or we raffled it off there and raised £1,000 for it. Just 2 weeks ago, ahead as part of the Celtic Quick News summer charity drive. So as a wee dedication to Ali and to Texas himself, and the fact it's a great song, and I remember great memories from it. I Don't Want a Lover from Texas.
That was I Don't Want a Lover by Texas. What irritates you?
People who still listen to the media irritate me. We all know the media's agenda. People who listen to the media know the media's agenda. The wee example I gave you about where's the Seville money gone to is a perfect example of how the media take a simple, straightforward nonsense and poison the Celtic debate, and it's still there, it's still relevant, people still buy it, still influenced by it. They know what's going on, they know the script. It goes beyond belief that 9 years down the line from what I started out, people are still doing it now. It's changed. 9 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you didn't have any choice but to consume the media, and you were on your Todd at that stage. Somebody might know something and were able to tell you it, and you were then at your own mercy of balancing that against the perceived media view. But that game's gone now. I don't think I've bought a newspaper since Pope John Paul died. People don't need to do that anymore. They've moved on, and yet thousands and thousands still consume it, still quote it, still talk to me about it, no matter how often I say, look, who told you that? Where'd you read that? Why are you talking to me about that?
Your next song?
Next song's Perfect Day. The BBC did a version, as we all know, of Lou Reed's Perfect Day. Lou Reed I liked, I didn't know much about his music. Knew Walking a Wild Side and stuff like that, which was good. And you go to uni in the 80s, you can't avoid Lou Reed. Then the BBC picked this thing up and did it magnificently. And every time I hear it, it brings me back to the 5-1 game in 1998. As we were walking away from Celtic Park that day, the DJ played Perfect Day. We were bad at that stage. We hadn't won 2 consecutive games all season. Got into that game, I think we beat Motherwell the previous week, and so this was the first time we'd won back-to-back victories. We'd never seen 5 goals against Rangers. I think Celtic did it in 66, and I'd seen 4 a couple of times, but not 5. 5-1's not 4-2 either. It was a shock, it was out of the blue, it was fantastic, it was unexpected, it was full of Celticness. In fact, it was the unfancied underdog, as we were, getting it all together and just wiping the floor with them. They scored great goals. I can't help but listen to the song and go through that game again. And let me just give you one more wee comment on it. My seat's in the back row at Celtic Park in the North Stand, so we look out right over Glasgow, can look into Hampden, believe it or not, and we walk along the back row and then down the stairway, and I'm walking along and there's this old boy from Ireland walking the other way, smiling from ear to ear, and just as he gets to me he says, "This is my first day in Scotland. What a wonderful country." it was like, we know how to put an event on at Celtic Park, we know how to do football really well, not just when that lot came and played, but we've got lots and lots of more and better experiences up to and including this season. But this guy came and he'd experienced nothing like this, and he lapped it up and I lap it up. And so Perfect Day, walked past that guy, don't know who the hell he was, never seen him again in my life, still remember him for that wee comment, remember all about the game. And if you listen to Perfect Day, just let the memories of that game just flood over you, because I will.
How do you relax?
God, Billy, I don't even know if I do relax. I'm always busy at work. I'm in a fortunate position of being busy at work right now. I don't knock it, which is why I'm working as much as I do work, because there's this kind of feeling that if you start to knock it back, then you go on a slippy slope, so you grab it while it's there, and that's where I am right now. I've got 2 boys who I play football with a couple of times a week anyway. I'm down the park with them kicking a ball about. They're 11 and 8, so they are at the stage I can still, beat them if I want to and need to, and every now and again I do. But they're also at the stage, if I'm not paying attention, then they can beat me, they can take the ball past me and do all of that. So they win about half the games. We take wee turns about, one will go in goals and I'll play the other one, or we'll just play a wee kind of short shooty type game. They enjoy it, always asking, can we go down the park, play football? And you've got to know that these are the times you've got to say yes. It doesn't matter how tired you are, you got to get your jeans on and get out there and do it and play with them, because you get it back in. And if you let the tiredness overtake you at that stage, and you're missing out the best part of it. And I love it, enjoy it. You home with your dinner, you go out and just get a wee bit of air about your lungs, then you get your second wind at that stage. I also have taken up running. Saturday morning I'm up taking my youngest to his football first of all, and I'll usually, after he gets back, try and go straight out and do my 10k, and then if we've got a game, obviously get ready for that. And occasionally you can do that on a Saturday, occasionally you can't. The running's got to wait to at some point on a Sunday. But I do the running, I do the fives. The majority of the guys I play fives against are about 20 years younger than me, and it's hard. I got to the point 2 years ago of realising I wasn't fit enough. I was either going to need to change that fitness thing or chuck it, because I was just useless. I was not doing the job at the fives, and I'm loath to give it up because I really enjoy it. I really, really love it. So I took up running then, just to be able to get me to run enough to continue to play fives. And it's kind of taking over the fives a wee bit now. I'm keener on running than on the fives now. You get hooked on it, and I'm actually hooked on it. I'm 2 years into it, I'm still finding it hard. And I don't race. I entered the Great Scottish Run last year, and I'll do the same this year, but I'm on my own apart for that. I've got the watch now, so you're always up marking your time. If I'm not taking seconds off my previous best, then I'm thinking about it, and I'm analysing it, and I'm going over it, and I'm back out again. I'm trying harder next week, and I'm prepping harder next. So it's kind of grabbed me now, and it's driving me on a wee bit. And it doesn't feel like relaxation. It feels like anti-relaxation, but it probably qualifies as relaxation to some extent.
Well, I'm exhausted after listening to it, so I'm going to ask you to give us your sixth song.
Sixth song is Glory Days by Bruce Springsteen. Again, a guy for the 80s, and I'm maybe betraying a lot of when I grew up and started buying my own music. A lot of good poppy stuff is Bruce, and I like much of it. But Bruce isn't going to grow rich on the money that he makes out of me. And again, it's a song that you can't help but hear, but it takes you back. The day after we beat Manchester United in 2006 to qualify for the knockout stages of the Champions League, and I gave Radio Clyde a wee bit of abuse earlier without naming them, so I'll make it up on this occasion. Driving to work, and they played Glory Days in the middle of the song, and I've never heard them do anything like this in my life. They dubbed a wee bit of audio in with Nakamura's goal and the commentator going mental. And of course it was great, it was fantastic if you were a Celtic fan to have that moment just relived to you half a day later. And now every time I hear Glory Days, I'm taken straight back to that. Fantastic football, fantastic goal, and now we've done it for the third time, qualified for the knockout stages, but it was beyond us then. It was beyond the great Martin O'Neill team, and then from nowhere this guy won the league, got us into the Champions League, beat Man United, and Gordon Strachan had taken us a place that we hadn't got with the previous heroes. So for all of those reasons, Glory Days gets a nomination.
That was Glory Days by Bruce Springsteen. So what does the future hold for you?
Billy, I'm not a planner. I'm working, I'm enjoying my work, and I'm trying to make that go as long as possible. The kids are growing up, and I've got a great relationship with them, and I want that to be more of a part going forward than it has been in the past, and it is right now. And I think that's what you've always got to plan for. You've got to plan to be close to your family. I'm fortunate enough to still have my dad. Lost my mum 18 years ago now, in fact, but still have my dad, still go to football with my dad, go with my brother, and go with my sons as well. And it's a great way to go and see Celtic, and we all enjoy it. My dad, the day we won the league, and just so many people disrespecting winning this league, But for those of us who've been about long enough to understand how rare it is sometimes to win the league, you've got to lap it up and you've got to appreciate it. And my dad, just after a full-time whistle, says, look, you don't know how many more of these I'm going to be about for, so I appreciate it. And I was really annoyed at him for saying that and for going there, but he understands this is what we're here for. This is part of us. You can't separate these great occasions from our being and from who we are, and it goes back the generations. It goes back to his father and both my grandfathers, and God knows how far it goes back beyond that. And it's something you pass on to your boys, or hopefully you can pass on to your kids as well. What does the future hold for me? Hopefully more of the same. I'm married 13 years now and happily married as well, and hopefully we keep that going for the rest of our lives and grow old together and make the boys into good solid adults. Celtic Quick News I love, enjoy. I'm getting a lot out of it right now. I don't know how long it's possible to go on with it. It's not without its risks, and it's not without its incidents and moments, and one will break it. At one point I suspect that'll be it, and I'll just say, look, enough, and out the blue it'll end, or out the blue I'll be out of it. But right now it gives me the opportunity to talk Celtic to people like you, and every day people talk to me about Celtic, and I love it and enjoy it, and I've always got a view on it, and I've always got something to say about it. It gives me access to the club as well, and I know for 100 years Celtic fans didn't have access to the club, but it was a closed shop, and I appreciate what I've got in that respect. I appreciate the ability of being able to pick up a telephone and put a call in and get somebody to answer that and listen to what I've said and answer a question and give me some. For 100 years Celtic fans just didn't get that, and right now I've got that, and I know tens of thousands of Celtic fans don't have that either, so I've got to deal with it responsibly. I've got to and I do appreciate that privilege of being able to say, have a piece said and have a question asked and answered, and then have the responsibility of going out and taking whatever I get out of that information or view or otherwise, and then dealing with it. And that doesn't mean to say I can say, look, I've just spoke to Peter Lawwell and Peter Lawwell has just told me X, Y and Z, because you can't say that in that manner quite often, because what information you're given is given for you to inform you of what's going on, not to quote, not to go out and say that there is a comment from the club, because fortunately I get a lot of things the club cannot publicly comment on. That's one of the big benefits I get out of it. It's the major benefit I get out of it, and hopefully I do that job well of explaining things back out. The stuff I can quote, the stuff I can explain, and stuff I can be very overt on, and then there's stuff that I can just understand where the club are going, and if I agree with it and I want to explain it, then I go and do it and I explain it and I agree with it. If I don't agree with it, and there's lots I don't agree with, then I either got the choice to say publicly or privately or both, and there's been many occasions that I've done both, including every single managerial appointment the club have made since I've been doing Celtic Quick News. I privately and publicly disagreed with and come out and said, look, this is a bad appointment for Gordon Strachan, who was a unquestionable success, for Tony Mowbray, who was not, and for Neil Lennon, who was an unquestionable success. So I retain the ability and freedom to call it as I see, and I'll not go against my own view, even if the club come to me and say, look, Neil Lennon's the right guy for X, Y and Z reason. I was full of, look, this is another rookie manager, this is another Brady or Barnes here, and it's too risky, and that was my view on it, and I had to explain that, and I wouldn't back Neil Lennon just for the sake of backing Neil Lennon, although I do now, and I think I've been proven wrong on it, but I think that's where Celtic Quick News is going. But as I say, it's not without its troubles, and at one point it'll go and I'll be out of it.
Your penultimate song?
Pencil Full of Lead by Paolo Nutini. Paolo's is a guy that's popular in the generation below and above me in my family. Very unique, very distinct, Scottish and a Celtic fan into the bargain. It's easy music to enjoy, it's easy music to like. I'll tell you a funny wee story though. The Rangers supporting pal, whose idea Celtic Quick News was, comes into this one as well. In 2008, Carling, who were then the club sponsor, put up an auction prize for the big summer fundraising we have for charity, and we got a couple of grand off it. But the guy who was running Carling, as far as I could see anyhow, for us, emailed me a couple of days before the Phil O'Donnell benefit game against Motherwell on the 25th of May 2008. Says, look, we've got tickets for the director's box, it'd be really good if you could come along and bring somebody along. So of course you jump at it and say, aye, of course, delighted to. Nice wee jolly and a seat in the director's box. So I gave my dad a shout on it, and we were all set to go. But my Rangers supporting friend's wife was critically ill at the time, and on the morning of the game, he phoned me up to say that she'd passed away. So of course I couldn't go to the football, and I went out to see him instead. But I phoned my dad and says, look, you just go and take somebody, don't let the seat go spare. The guy at Carling is Paul, and says, so if you see him, introduce yourself, and I'll email him, I'll explain what's happened, but Paul is the guy you've got to go and speak to. So my dad pitches up at Celtic Park and goes into the director's box with his friend sitting to the right of him. He turns to the guy sitting to the left of him and said, are you Paul? And I says, well, they call me Paulo actually, but you can call me whatever you like. And my dad says, well, they call you Paulo, I'll call you Paulo. So for the next 45 minutes, my dad and this Paulo character blather away about the game and about Phil O'Donnell. God knows what the hell, my dad can talk. At half time they stand up. Paulo, apparently from Carling, wanders off. And the guy that my dad took along, sitting to his right, says, you've no idea who that is, do you? He says, no. He says, Paolo Nutini. And he says, who's Paolo Nutini? So that's my dad's introduction to Paolo Nutini. They came back out the second half, and my dad says, they tell me you're a singer. Sorry, I didn't know. And Paolo was quite alright about that, and got into it. So they blethered the whole second half. And my dad, of course, now is a big Paolo Nutini fan, and goes out and buys Paolo Nutini and is right into Paolo Nutini as much as I am, as much as my sons are. And so we've got Pencil Full of Lead by Paolo Nutini.
Right, we've come to the part of the programme where I give you the complete works of the dandy and a copy of the Bible to take with you to your island. Would you like a copy of the Bible?
I'm not going to read the Bible, Billy. I'm a man of faith, and I'm a practising Catholic, but I've never read the Bible in my life. I got a copy of a children's Bible for one of my boys, opened it up and started reading 3 stories out about, oh good God, really? That whole Old Testament stuff, ethnic cleansing, it's not gospel, if I can pun slightly. It's not what I would read, and it's not been a faith-based inspiration to me either, so it would be wrong of me to sit here and say to you I take the Bible because I've had 46 years worth of access to a Bible without really going there.
Which other book would you take, and why?
You mean apart from Willie Wallace autobiography? There's 2 books that every football fan should read. Why England Lose. 4 years ago I bought this book when it came out, and it's all about how to scout, where to scout, how to run your finances, how to pay wages, how to run your club, and it's statistically based on where people do it wrong and are doing it wrong, and where have been doing it wrong, and where clubs who are doing it right are doing it right. And went and talked to people that are doing it right, got them to explain it, and I bought this book, read it, and I went out and bought another copy of it. And I went into Celtic Park one day and I asked to see Peter Lawwell, and I put this book in his hand and says, go away and read it. And he sat with me for about 20 minutes and flicked through it and opened and discussed it. And of course he says, okay, that's all okay, we know all of that. Yeah, you can't tell Peter anything. But that was 4 years ago, and it said things like scout value markets, ignore bad value markets, don't buy teenagers, by guys in their early 20s, because the teenagers, it's too difficult to tell which one's going to make it. Stats are better on people at their early 20s going to make it. And it's a great book. If you're planning to run a football club, go read Why England Lose, and it'll help and it'll benefit. And if it informed any Peter Lawwell's decisions, then all fine and well. But the best football book is Inverting the Pyramid by Jonathan Wilson. Jonathan Wilson is a Guardian football writer. He writes about Eastern Europe and about Latin America, which is not everybody's interest or cup of tea, but he writes well, understands the game well, and he's written the history of tactics in the game. Takes you all the way back to the mid-19th century when they played a different type of football in Scotland than they played in England. Scottish football was more effective. Scotland won more of the home-based international games that they had, all the way through Catenaccio, which wasn't something that Helenio Herrera invented. It started off in Switzerland, believe it or not, and it takes you through the great Austrian teams and the coffee house football that happened in the 1920s and 30s in Austria and in the Low Countries, where they took football on, which was largely a British based game, prior to that, but they took it off in a different tactical direction. And then, of course, the great Austrian team in the 1930s, and then the war happened and destroyed that, and then the Hungarians came along, and as well as being a great reading, a great education to any lover of the game, it's informative of how tactics evolve, and they always do evolve, and always have evolved. They're still evolving. You learn how tactics evolve. You begin to fine-tune your own tactical views of what you're watching and what should be done next. Touches on, and he gives appropriate respect to what Jock Stein did. I've read as much as anybody on the Lisbon Lions. This was a fresh view on it. It was a clinical, tactical analysis of it. It was there in the book because it merited a place in the book. It did end Catenaccio, and it was distinct from what went. It was distinct from the Dutch, who took over with their total football. If you're a Celtic fan, those pages are worth it alone, so you got to go and read it for that. If you're into your football, then Inverting the Pyramid by Jonathan Wilson is the one book that you've got to do yourself a favour and go and read, and it's the one book that I could probably read in a desert island, because you read it again and again and again. So much in it, so much to learn, so much that become intuitive to you, and then you start to watch football with different eyes.
A luxury, something to make your life a bit more bearable.
A luxury would be a football. I kick a football every day in life. There's a football in our living room, in our kitchen, and in our hall every day in life, and I get out and play with the boys, or play fives on a Tuesday. I just love the feel of it on my foot and flicking it up and doing a wee bit of keepy up here, knocking it up into the air, catching it. There's an intimate relationship there that's been going back 40 odd years now. I still enjoy kicking a ball. I still get a thrill out of kicking a ball. I still get a thrill out of putting the ball in the back of the net. Don't get a thrill out of doing it against my boys. Get a thrill out of doing it against men in their 20s or at fives. It is fun kicking a football. It's fun doing a wee bit of keepy uppy. It's fun just putting on your foot and rolling it back and forth, and if there was a football sitting in front of me right now, I'd have my foot on it doing something like that. And it's an intangible thing that if you're a footballer, you played football, and I was never good at it, I just enjoy it, then you'll always enjoy it. And I can't think of anything that I get as much sheer fun out of as a football, and I get a lot of fun out of football. And I don't have a great back, and I used to go to chiropractors quite a bit to get the discs popped back in, and now I get a football pumped up hard, sit it at the base of my back, roll the thing up my back, and you can hear it pop, 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 and it pops on my disc. I have a football at my desk in the office. Take it into a private room to do that. I don't do it at my desk. I've got a really, really close relationship with the football, and it would have to be the item.
Your final song?
Ray Charles, With You on My Mind, and this is right up to date. I didn't know this song 6 months ago. I was watching BBC 4 and I wasn't watching it, I just flicked on it, and there's a Ray Charles live in Antibes 1961 concert. It's a small concert, it's in a nightclub type environment, and Ray's sitting there in black and white knocking it out, and on comes With You on My Mind, and the guy can sell anything, and he can certainly sell this song. He engaged me right there and then. It's a 52-year-old song, but I thought, right, I gotta get that. I go on and I try and download it, and I can't download it. It's not available anywhere. And I discovered it's a Nat King Cole song. Fair enough, download Nat King Cole, but it's just not the same thing. It's dry, it's dated, and I thought, okay, this isn't going to do. I'm going to need to get this song. So I go and I buy the DVD, order the DVD in, and in comes the DVD of Ray Charles' concert in Antibes in 1961, and I've got a work PC, and the disc was formatted and Windows put by it, so I don't have any DVD software, I don't have any media type software on it at all. So I then to go and install DVD playing software, and then to install audio capturing software, and I'm hours into this project thinking, I hope this song is actually worth it, because all I heard it was on one occasion, but I heard it, I thought, right, I'm going to get that song, never gave it another, and we're weeks down the line now and I haven't heard this song again. But of course I got it eventually, and I knocked it out, and it's now on my phone, and it now gets listened. It's a song that grabbed me in 2013, and it's a wee bit different. It's completely different than anything else in my playbook, and hopefully if you're listening to it, you give it a listen to it, you'll enjoy it. It's full of atmosphere, it's full of life. You can interpret any great song in any way you want. And I've given you a few interpretations with a Celtic bias. You can listen to this song, think about Glasgow Celtic all the way through it if you like, and it's that kind of song. You can attach your own sentiment onto it, but I hope you enjoy it.
Paul Brennan, thank you very much for being a desert island Tim.
Thanks, Billy.